The guard thought he was asleep. What happened next shocked the entire prison. Lights out was the first mistake. Hit subscribe before the lights go out, because the truth in this place doesn't sleep, and neither should you. The night the prison fell quiet, every officer believed it was just another routine count. Tier C of the Monroe Correctional Unit lay in darkness, humming with the low murmur of men pretending to rest. But one cell, Cell 214, held a silence so perfect it made seasoned guards uneasy. Inside, inmate Elias Carter, serving a 15-year sentence for armed robbery, lay motionless under his thin state-issued blanket. Even from the narrow hallway slot, he looked asleep. His breathing seemed steady. His outline looked solid. Too solid. Officer Raymond Holt paused at the door. He tapped the bars once, the way he always did when something didn't sit right. No response. No shift in the blankets. Nothing. 214 secure, Holt finally murmured into his radio. He shouldn't have said it. Because Elias Carter was no longer in that bed. Hours earlier, he had carved the blanket into layers, rolled old magazines into the rough shape of a torso, and positioned them under the sheets. A smeared bar of soap darkened with pen ink created the illusion of hair on the pillow. It wasn't perfect, but it didn't need to be. Not on a night when the supervising sergeant was rushing rounds, cutting corners, and ignoring the slow decay in the prison's routines. Guards walked the tier twice that hour. Neither noticed the missing inmate. By 2:17 a.m., Carter had already slipped into the ceiling, a rusted, barely repaired space above the shower area that maintenance had flagged months ago. No one had fixed it. No one believed anyone could reach it. That was the second mistake. But this story isn't just about an escape. It's about how everything that followed spiraled into something far darker. Because Elias Carter didn't escape alone. Across the tier, Jonas McKee, a quiet inmate known for keeping to himself, sat awake and alert in his cell. He wasn't part of the plan. He wasn't supposed to know anything. Yet he had seen Carter's silhouette disappear into the ceiling hours earlier, and instead of alerting staff, he waited. Not out of fear, but opportunity. McKee had leverage now. And in a place where information could buy safety, buy favors, even buy silence, leverage was power. The next morning, during the 6 a.m. count, panic swept through the unit. Officers tore apart Cell 214. Blankets were thrown aside. The decoy was exposed. Wardens were summoned. Radios crackled with chaos. But it was the second discovery that truly froze the blood of every investigator. A small square of metal was found pried loose above the showers. The opening was barely wide enough for a man to fit, but streaks of dust and handprints proved someone had climbed through recently. A set of scuffed boot marks lined the tiled wall beneath it. Boot marks that didn't match Carter's shoes alone. 2 different tread patterns. 2 men. 2 pair of boots. 2 sets of prints leading upward. But only one inmate was missing. Investigators regrouped, confused and furious. Someone had helped Carter, or worse, someone had followed him. But when they checked the overnight logs, every inmate except Carter was accounted for. Everyone except Jonas McKee, who sat calmly at breakfast, eating slowly, watching officers scramble like ants. He didn't say a word. Not yet. But when investigators later reviewed surveillance footage from the hallway, zooming in on the darkened cell block, they spotted something that changed the entire direction of the case. In the last seconds before Carter vanished into the ceiling, a shadow moved across the bars of another cell, slow, calculated, and unmistakably deliberate. Someone else had been awake, watching. Someone with a motive. And when they opened McKee's cell later that afternoon, what they found inside changed everything. The man who knew too much. The officers expected Jonas McKee's cell to be immaculate. He wasn't the type to stir trouble. He avoided gangs, skipped conflicts, and walked the yard alone. But when the steel door clanged open, the room told a completely different story. A stack of inmate request forms sat folded under his mattress. Not unusual. But tucked between them was a hand-drawn map of the tier ceiling crawlspace, detailed, measured, and frighteningly accurate. McKee hadn't stumbled upon Carter's escape. He had prepared for it. The discovery made one thing clear: McKee wasn't a witness. He was a player. Detective Mara Kendrick from the State Corrections Investigation Unit arrived before noon. She'd worked prison breaches for years, but something about this case unsettled her. Carter was clever, yes, but he wasn't the type to build a plan this precise. Someone else had engineered it. And Jonas McKee's map looked like the blueprint. "This isn't Carter's handwriting," Kendrick said, tapping the map with one gloved finger. "This is neat. Thought out. Calculated." Carter was impulsive. Someone else planned the route. The warden exhaled sharply. "McKee?" "We won't know until we talk to him," Kendrick answered. "But let's be careful. Men like this rarely show their whole hand." McKee was escorted into the interrogation room at 1:45 p.m., wrists cuffed, eyes steady, expression unreadable. He sat calmly, like he'd been expecting them. "Mr. McKee," Kendrick began, "we found a map in your cell. Want to tell me why?" McKee didn't blink. Carter didn't plan that escape. He wasn't smart enough. Then who did? A faint smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Someone who doesn't like sloppy guards. Someone tired of watching officers sleepwalk through their rounds. Someone who knows the cracks in this place better than your entire staff. Kendrick leaned in. "Are you saying you helped him?" "I'm saying," McKee replied slowly, "that Carter wasn't the only one who wanted out." Before Kendrick could push further, the warden burst in, breathless, sweating, panic in his eyes. "We have a problem," he said. "A serious one." At first, no one understood the severity of what he was holding. It was a grainy printout of a surveillance image from 2:03 a.m., the moment Carter disappeared into the ceiling. In the background, behind Carter's cell bars, something moved. A silhouette. A tall, thin figure. Standing perfectly still in the darkness. And it wasn't McKee. "Who is this?" Kendrick demanded. "We don't know," the warden replied. "But we've checked every inmate's location. Every one of them was locked inside their cell at that time." Kendrick frowned. Then either an officer walked that tier without logging it, or someone learned how to bypass an electronic door. That was when McKee finally spoke again. "You're all asking the wrong question," he murmured. "Carter didn't escape alone. And the man who followed him, he didn't go with him. Carter was bait." The room froze. Kendrick swallowed hard. "Bait for what?" "To expose a weak point," McKee said. "One that someone else has used for years. Someone who's been slipping in and out without being noticed." The warden's face drained of color. "You're saying there's someone inside this facility, who can disappear at will?" McKee nodded slowly. "And if Carter's smart, he's realized he wasn't the first to find that ceiling opening. He was just the first dumb enough to make noise." Kendrick's chest tightened. They hadn't just lost one inmate. They might have uncovered an entirely separate, unknown threat, someone who moved through the prison unseen. Someone who didn't want Carter escaping. Someone with something to protect. And then the radio crackled. "All units, be advised, we found something above the ceiling hatch. You need to see this." Kendrick sprinted to the shower area. Officers stood in a terrified semicircle. In the dust above the crawlspace opening, was writing. Scratched into the metal. Jagged. Fresh. Only 2 words. "He's next." Kendrick's stomach flipped. "He who?" "Carter?" "No," McKee said quietly behind her, having been escorted along. "Not Carter." Kendrick turned toward him. "Then who?" McKee's voice lowered to a whisper. "The guard who thought he was asleep." The truth was already inside the walls. Officer Raymond Holt didn't know he was being watched. He stood in the hallway outside Tier C, pacing, replaying the night count in his head. He kept seeing the shape under the blanket, the fake rise and fall of breathing he never checked more closely. Now the entire prison knew his name. Investigators whispered. Supervisors glared. And somewhere above the ceiling, a message had been carved for him. He's next. Detective Kendrick found him leaning against the concrete wall, jaw tight, hands shaking. Officer Holt, she said quietly, I need you to tell me everything you remember from last night. I already did. Tell me again. He swallowed hard. I checked Carter's cell. He didn't move. He looked asleep. I didn't look long. We were behind schedule. Kendrick studied him. Shame had carved deep lines across his face. But there was something else too, fear. A fear that didn't come from losing an inmate. A fear that came from being targeted. Holt, she said, did Carter ever threaten you? No, he murmured. Carter didn't care about guards. He just wanted out. Then why would the message be meant for you? Holt didn't answer. Because he didn't have to. A pair of officers rushed toward them. Detective. You need to see this. It's in the security office. In the dim surveillance room, a monitor displayed footage from earlier that afternoon. Kendrick leaned closer. The angle showed the main hallway, empty except for Holt and someone else. A tall, thin figure trailing him by several steps. Silent. Deliberate. Staying just out of sight. Pause it, Kendrick said. The still image sent a cold wave through the room. The figure's uniform was similar to a correctional officer's, but not exact. No badge. No name tag. No identifying patch. And the face, just shadow. Like the camera itself couldn't focus on him. Who is this? Kendrick whispered. We checked staff rosters, an officer said. Nobody matches that build. Check inmate jumpsuits. Already did. No match. Kendrick stared at the screen. If this man wasn't an inmate, wasn't staff, and moved freely between restricted corridors, then McKee was right. There was someone inside the prison who shouldn't be there. Someone who had learned how to live between the walls. Where's Carter now? Kendrick demanded. Not far, an officer replied. K-9 units found him in the outer maintenance yard. He never made it off the property. Bring him. Minutes later, Carter was dragged into the room, exhausted, terrified, sweating through his shirt. He looked less like a mastermind and more like a man who had realized he played a part in someone else's design. Who followed you into the ceiling? Kendrick asked. Carter's voice trembled. I don't know his name. Describe him. He's quiet. Walks the tiers at night. Never talks. Never eats with the others. Some of the guys said he was a guard who died here years ago, but that's just. Kendrick cut him off. No stories. Facts. Carter's eyes widened. Fine. I know he watched us. Watched the guards. Watched everything. McKee said if I climbed through the showers, I'd find the weak spot. But he didn't tell me I wasn't the first one to use it. Kendrick froze. McKee told you? Yes, Carter breathed. He knew the route. He knew the timing. He even knew Holt would rush the count. Every head in the room snapped toward Kendrick. Holt's face went pale. Why would McKee know that? Kendrick asked. Because, Carter whispered, he said Holt wasn't the one in danger, yet. A sudden alarm blared across the facility. Red lights flashed. Officers shouted through radios. All units, Tier C lockdown. We have a breach in the inner hallway. Kendrick ran. Holt stumbled after her. They burst onto Tier C just as officers backed away from the ceiling hatch. Dust rained down. Something was moving inside the crawlspace. Slow. Methodical. Coming closer. A hand emerged. Then an arm. Then the shadowed figure began lowering itself into the tier. Officers raised tasers. Halt! Kendrick shouted. But the figure didn't stop. He touched the concrete floor softly, like he owned it. Kendrick stepped forward. "Identify yourself." The man lifted his head. And from the darkness of his face, a single sentence drifted out. "Ask McKee." The figure bolted, vanishing into the utility corridor before anyone could grab him. Officers sprinted after him, but when they reached the end of the hallway, he was gone. Not escaped. Not hiding. Gone, like he had melted back into the building. And McKee? He was already back in his cell. Sitting on his bed. Hands folded. Waiting. When Kendrick demanded answers, he only smiled. "You were never chasing Carter," he said softly. "You were chasing the man who's been here longer than all of us. Even the guards." Kendrick stared at him. "Who is he?" "He doesn't have a name anymore," McKee whispered. "But he has a purpose." "What purpose?" "To choose who gets to leave this place, and who doesn't." Kendrick shivered. And behind her, Holt took a single step back, realizing the truth. The message in the ceiling wasn't a threat. It was a verdict. He's next. And the shadow wasn't finished. If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what comes next.